Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going behind the scene of a booming industry, one that's all about stealth and anonymity, rotating proxies.
Sounds exciting.
We've got this great blog article with us called 11 Best Rotating Proxies 2025. Stealth mode for online ops. And we really want to help you understand what these things are.
Yeah.
Not just what they are, but how they could be like a secret weapon, in your digital toolbox. To help us break down this kind of technical stuff and connect the dots, we've got expert speaker with us today.
I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So the article kicks off by really highlighting this massive growth we're seeing in web scraping.
Yeah.
It's projected to hit like $1.4 billion by 2027.
Wow.
Which tells you there's a ton of value in gathering data from the web.
Right.
But it's getting harder and harder to do without, getting caught. That's where these rotating proxies come in, right?
Absolutely. It's like this arms race almost.
Yeah.
Between the websites trying to protect their data and businesses that need that data for, business insights and stuff. And rotating proxies can really help level the playing field there.
For sure. Okay, so for those who may not be as familiar, can you break down what a rotating proxy actually does?
Imagine you're walking into a crowded room.
Okay.
But instead of showing your face, you're constantly swapping masks.
Okay.
That's basically what a rotating proxy does for your computer. It keeps changing your IP address, which is like your online ID card.
Gotcha.
So websites can't easily track you or block you.
So you're not just hiding, you're kind of blending in.
Exactly. You're blending in with the digital crowd. And this is super important for things like web scraping, where you're gathering a lot of data.
Okay.
Many websites have things in place to stop bots, but with a rotating proxy, you look like a normal user, so you can bypass all that.
Makes sense. Now, the article jumps into a whole bunch of different providers, but let's zero in on their top picks.
Sure.
They seem really impressed with Proxy Cheat, calling it the best overall for affordability and how reliable it is. They even point out that they've got both residential and data center proxies, which I'll admit,
Right.
I don't really know the difference.
Yeah.
Can you break that down?
It all comes down to the source of the IP address. So residential proxies use IP addresses from actual residential ISPs, like from people's homes.
Okay.
So it looks way more authentic.
Gotcha.
Data center proxies, those come from, big data centers. They're usually faster and cheaper,
Okay.
but they're also easier to spot as proxies.
So it's like a trade-off between being sneaky and the cost.
Exactly. Choosing the right type depends on what you're doing and how much risk you're okay with.
Risk tolerance, yeah.
Yeah.
The article also seems to love IP Royal, especially how precise their targeting options are. They say it starts at just $2 a gigabyte, pay as you go. What makes their targeting so special?
Well, with IP Roll, you can get really specific with the IPs you pick. You can target certain cities, regions, even mobile carriers.
Oh, wow.
This is really great for things like market research, where you want to see how prices or search results change based on, where the user is.
So it's not just hiding your IP. It's like picking the best one for what you need to do.
Exactly.
That's pretty wild.
It is. It opens up a ton of possibilities for researchers and businesses.
Totally. Now, the other provider in their top 3 is Smart Proxy. They claim a 99.47% success rate, which sounds really good. And they say the dashboard is easy to use, but that the pricing can get a little confusing.
Yeah, Smart Proxy has a lot of flexibility in their plans.
Okay.
Which is good if you've got specific needs, but if you're just starting out, it can be too much.
Okay.
They have different pricing tiers based on how much traffic you use, how many threats you're using, and the type of proxy. So you really got to look at the details to make sure you're getting a good deal.
So Smart Proxy might be good for power users, but maybe not for beginners, huh?
Right. You got to pick a provider that you're comfortable with technically.
For sure. Okay, so we've got a pretty good idea of the big names now. But the article lists 8 other providers, too.
Yeah.
And each one seems to have its own little quirks and features. How does anyone even choose the right one for them?
You're totally right. And luckily, the article kind of gives you a checklist.
Oh, perfect.
They talk about a few key things to think about when you're picking a rotating proxy provider.
Awesome. Let's run through those. They start with location coverage, which seems pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
The more locations, the better, right?
Not necessarily. It depends on what you're trying to do. So if you're scraping data from sites in specific countries, then yeah, you need a provider with servers in those places.
Oh, okay.
But if you don't need anything specific, then having a wider range of locations might not be so important.
So it's kind of like quality over quantity with the location coverage.
Exactly. You need to make sure the provider has good coverage in the places that you care about most.
Gotcha. Okay, the next thing on their list is pool size, which I guess is how many IP addresses they have. Bigger's always better when it comes to proxy pools, right?
Generally, yeah, a bigger pool gives you more choices for rotating your IP,
Okay.
which makes it harder for websites to figure out what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it means you're less likely to use the same IP address as someone else who might be, doing stuff that could get you flagged.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's about staying hidden in the crowd, digitally speaking. What about speed? How important is that?
Speed is super important, especially if you're dealing with lots of data or need results like right away.
Yeah.
A slow proxy can really slow you down and even make you miss out on things.
Makes sense. Nobody wants to wait around for pages to load, especially when time is money, right?
Exactly.
Okay, they also talk about pricing, which seems pretty obvious, but what kind of different pricing stuff is out there?
Well, you'll usually see options like pay-as-you-go,
Okay.
monthly subscriptions, and sometimes even dedicated plans with like a set amount of bandwidth. The best one for you depends on how much you use it and your budget.
So if you're just testing things out, pay-as-you-go might make sense, but if you use it a lot, a subscription might be better.
Exactly.
What about ethical practices?
Oh, that's getting more and more important as people get more aware of, data privacy and responsible data collection.
Right.
You want to pick a provider that's upfront about how they do things, respects websites' terms of service, and gets their IP addresses ethically.
So it's not just about getting the data, it's about doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Okay, last on their checklist is customer support. Why is that so important with these rotating proxies?
Because even with the easiest to use interfaces, sometimes things go wrong, or you might have specific questions.
Right.
Having good customer support can be a lifesaver.
Yeah.
Especially if you're dealing with technical issues that could really mess up your work.
So it's like having a tech expert on call to help you with all this stuff.
Exactly. It gives you peace of mind knowing that you're not on your own in this whole digital world.
Totally. Well, it feels like we've got a solid foundation here. We understand the major players and the things to think about when picking one. But are there any, common misconceptions or questions people have about rotating proxies?
Definitely. One common question is about how the IP rotation actually works, behind the scenes. People wonder if it's really that simple to just switch IPs and not get caught.
Yeah, that's a good question. It sounds almost too good to be true. How do they make sure that switching is smooth and actually works?
It's all about the tech they use behind the scenes. Good providers have sophisticated algorithms and systems to manage their pool of proxies and make sure the IP rotation is seamless.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's more complicated than just picking a new IP address randomly.
Absolutely. It's about making sure the IPs are clean, reliable, and rotated in a way that looks like normal user behavior.
Gotcha. Now, another term I've heard is sticky sessions. What's that all about?
Oh, that's a good one. A sticky session lets you keep the same IP address for a set amount of time,
Okay.
which can be helpful for things where you need consistency, like online shopping or banking.
So it's like hitting pause on that revolving door of IP addresses and sticking with one for a while.
Exactly. It gives you more control over your online identity when you need it.
Okay, well, this has been a really awesome deep dive into these rotating proxies. But before we move on to talking about how they're used, we should probably talk about the legal stuff. Are there any concerns about using them?
Well, it's really important to remember that while rotating proxies themselves are totally legal, how you use them can be a bit ethically or legally questionable.
So it's like any tool. It can be used for good or bad. It all depends on the user's intent.
Exactly. You need to know the terms of service for the websites you're on and make sure you're not breaking any rules or doing anything illegal.
Right, so be a responsible user and know the boundaries.
Exactly. It's about respecting the digital space and using these tools the right way.
Well, it seems like we've covered a ton in this first part of our deep dive. We've demystified these rotating proxies, looked at the top providers, and even touched on the legal stuff. But there's more. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into the ways people are using these rotating proxies, from market research to social media.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating landscape with a ton of different uses.
So stay tuned, and we'll be back soon to uncover even more secrets of the rotating proxy world.
Definitely.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've built a good foundation. We understand what these rotating proxies are, how to pick the right provider. So let's get practical now. How are people using these things in the real world?
Oh, the applications are super diverse.
Okay.
Businesses are using them for market research, social media stuff, even cybersecurity.
Wow.
And regular people use them to, protect their privacy and see content from different countries.
So let's start with market research.
Sure.
You mentioned that before. How are companies using these rotating proxies to get ahead, in the market?
So think about it this way. Say you're a company launching a new product.
Okay.
You want to know how your competitors are pricing their stuff, what kind of marketing they're doing, what customers are saying about them online.
That's a lot of information.
Exactly. And it's all over different websites, and a lot of them have ways to prevent automated data collection.
So how do the rotating proxies come in?
Well, by making you look like a regular user, they let you scrape data from these sites without getting blocked. So you can see pricing, track competitor promotions, analyze reviews, even see social media trends.
It's like having a bunch of researchers working all the time, but they're invisible.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And since you can target certain locations,
Right.
you can get really specific insights, see how pricing and what customers think changes from city to city, even down to the neighborhood.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to social media management. How are rotating proxies changing things there?
Well, social media sites are really strict about bots,
Right.
They want to make sure it's real people behind the accounts, not some software.
Yeah, I've heard about people getting their accounts suspended,
Mm-hmm.
even banned for using bots to schedule posts or do those follow-unfollow things.
Yeah, it's a real problem for businesses that rely on social media, for their marketing.
So how do rotating proxies help?
Well, by using one, you can manage a bunch of social media accounts without setting off those bot alarms. You can schedule posts, talk to your audience, even run ads without getting flagged.
So it's like having a whole social media team, but they're invisible to the algorithms.
Exactly. And because you can use IPs from different places, you can manage accounts for specific areas or types of people.
So you could have one account for the US, another for the UK, and manage them both without any problems.
Yeah, that's right. It's great for international businesses or anyone with a global audience.
Okay, now let's talk about something a bit more fun. Online gaming.
Okay.
How do these rotating proxies fit into the world of games and all that?
One of the most frustrating things for gamers is lag, that delay between what you do and what you see on the screen.
Right.
And it can make the difference between winning and losing, especially in fast-paced games.
Yeah, where every millisecond counts.
Exactly. Rotating proxies can help reduce lag by connecting you to game servers that are closer to you geographically.
So instead of your data going all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
it takes a more direct route to the server.
Right, which makes for a smoother, more responsive gaming experience.
Makes sense.
And for gamers who play in tournaments, rotating proxies can add extra security, protecting them from, DDoS attacks.
So it's not just about better performance, it's about making sure it's a fair fight. Okay, let's shift gears now to cybersecurity. How are rotating proxies being used to protect people and businesses from online threats?
It's kind of like the same tools you can use to get data secretly.
Right.
You can also use them to find and stop cyber attacks.
Makes sense.
Security professionals use them to test how vulnerable websites and networks are.
Okay.
By intending to attack from different IPs, they can find weaknesses and suggest fixes before, real hackers get in.
So it's like having good hackers test your defenses all the time.
Right.
So you're always a step ahead.
Exactly. And rotating proxies can also be used to gather what's called threat intelligence.
Okay.
So researchers can use them to watch for bad activity online, track botnets, and even spot phishing campaigns.
So it's not just about protection, it's about getting information to stop threats before they happen.
Yeah, exactly. Rotating proxies give these security people a great tool in the fight against cybercrime.
We've talked about a lot here.
Yeah.
But it seems like we've only scratched the surface of what's possible with these rotating proxies. Are there any other interesting use cases you can think of?
Oh, definitely. You can use them for ad verification, making sure ads are shown to the right people and not being messed with.
Okay.
They can also be used for content delivery, which lets companies get around geo-restrictions and show content to people anywhere in the world.
So, if you're a streaming service, you could use them to make sure people in different countries can all see the same shows and movies.
Yeah, that's one example. And for regular folks, rotating proxies can help with privacy and protecting their online identity.
So it's kind of like browsing the web incognito, leaving no trace.
Exactly. They can help you bypass questionship, access geo-blocked stuff, and even avoid targeted ads.
It seems like the possibilities are endless.
Mm-hmm.
But with all these benefits, are there any downsides or things people should watch out for with these rotating proxies?
Of course. It's good to be aware of the potential downsides. One common concern is speed. While they can make things faster sometimes, Routing traffic through different servers can also cause lag, especially with free or low-quality proxy services.
So it's like taking a detour online that might slow you down.
Exactly. And like we said before, there's the ethical and legal stuff. Using them for bad things, like scraping data from websites that say you can't,
Right.
can get you in trouble.
So it's a powerful tool that you got to use the right way.
Exactly. Rotating proxies aren't a magic solution, and you got to use them carefully and ethically.
Great point. Well, it seems like we've covered a lot of ground here exploring how these rotating proxies can be used.
Yeah, we've learned a lot about how they can make things more efficient, more secure, and protect people's privacy.
But hold on, we're not done yet. In our last segment, we'll wrap up this deep dive with the key takeaways and leave you with some things to think about.
It's been a really informative journey so far.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to summarizing everything and offering some final thoughts.
Awesome. So stay tuned. We'll be right back to finish up our exploration of the world of rotating proxies.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've really journeyed through the world of these rotating proxies, from what they are to how they're being used.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride. We've learned a lot about this, often overlooked part of the digital world.
Totally. But now it's time to zoom out a bit and connect all the dots. What are the big takeaways you hope our listeners will remember from today?
Well, I think the biggest one is that rotating proxies are a really powerful tool with a ton of different uses. They're not just for, tech companies or security experts. Anyone who uses the internet can benefit from understanding them.
Yeah, so it's not just about hiding your IP. It's about using rotating proxies strategically to get things done, whether it's market research, social media stuff, or even just browsing the web more privately.
Right. And just as important as knowing what they are is knowing how to use them. Choosing the right provider is really important. It's got to fit your needs and your technical skills. For sure. We talked about, researching providers, comparing pricing, location coverage, all that stuff. It's about finding the right partner for your online activities.
And maybe the most important thing to remember is that with this power comes responsibility. You can misuse rotating proxies like any tool. You got to be aware of the ethical and legal stuff and use them the right way.
So know the rules and play fair, basically.
Exactly. The online world is always changing, and as new technologies come out, we need to use them ethically and responsibly.
Well said. Expert speaker, thanks for taking us through this deep dive into rotating proxies. I think we've given our listeners a great place to start.
It was my pleasure. It's always fun to explore these topics and share what we know with people who want to learn.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has made you curious and given you something to think about. Now that you know more about rotating proxies, how could you use them in your own projects or, even just in your everyday online life?
That's a great question to think about as we wrap things up. The possibilities are really limitless, and we're excited to see what you all do with this knowledge.
And remember, technology never stops changing. So keep learning, keep exploring, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.